All right. First rule of this channel, we not talk about this channel. Say rule of this channel. This is not legal advice. So this is going to be the 2024 offseason fantasy football preview for the New York Jets. A couple things to get into ahead of time is I did have a comment on the Giants video about picking up some of the pieces of that offense. And again, the point of this series is more about finding out value of players, like the inappropriately valued players, staying away from guys that are overpriced and attacking guys that are underpriced. And again, guys have probably already heard me talk about like Lad McConkey a whole bunch. In regards to Malik Neighbors, I really like the player. I do not like the value that he's going at in most leagues. So I did listen to my Giants take again. And if you guys are aware, I do run my mouth and I'm a slightly disagreeable person. So I would retract the statement that he should not be drafted in any leagues. I don't know how he wins anybody in any leagues this year because of him being on bad offense. Again, I want pieces of good offenses. I don't want to pay for bad offenses at all. But we're wrong a lot. So going after cheap pieces of bad offenses is a good idea. Like think Mike Evans last year. He was ridiculously undervalued and he won a lot of leagues. So there is something to be said about that with Malik Neighbors. I will bring up, this is Yahoo. He's going 55 overall. This is one of the things that we're going to talk about. We're talking about a little bit with Aaron Rodgers today. Someone has Malik Neighbors as their overall 27th rated player in fantasy this year. That's ridiculous to me. I just don't know how he returns on that. Like if Malik Neighbors is going in the range of like 75, I'm smashing that. That's really easy. There are guys that I like better at their prices, and they have better situations, but 75 is like really easy for me to go, hey, yeah, I'll pay that to find out I'm wrong. 27 is probably like way too rich for me. If you're in the range of about like wide receiver, like 25, 50 overall, and that's where he's going on like fantasy pros, he's going 49 overall, wide receiver 26. That's way too expensive. On Underdog, he is going wide receiver 20 with an ADP of 29. Like you might have to pay for Malik Neighbors, and I will bring this up. Last year with the 49ers, they had 60 offensive touchdowns. CMC averaged 1.23 touchdowns per game. Barkley, he was on the Giants. They had 25 touchdowns last year. He averaged 0.58 touchdowns a game. Now, we could argue about who the better football player is between Barkley and CMC. And I would tend to go it's CMC, but I think it's closer than we'd like to admit. And between those two guys, like it just doesn't matter. Like better offenses put better players in position to score more touchdowns. And scoring touchdowns is probably going to have you a better chance of winning your fantasy football league than not scoring touchdowns. That's the long and short of it. And again, like our boy Nick Ercolano, like don't hate the player, hate the ADP. Like that's a lot to be spending on a guy. You put a 6th round ADP on a guy. I don't care. The 6th round ADP is the same as a 13th round ADP to me at that point. Jump up, go get the guy that you think is going to win you a league. You know, if I got to spend 5th round prices, I'm expecting that guy to pay off because it's going to be a lot harder for me just to dump that guy onto the waiver wire when he blows or when he fails to return. And in particular, I will talk about Garrett Wilson last year that I went up and spent on in my main money auction league. I was trying to just get equal return, trying to ship him after the Aaron Rodgers injury. That was one of the things that tanked my league. Like, could have predicted the offensive line was bad for the Jets, which meant that, the range of outcome for Garrett Wilson was probably lower. And then the Aaron Rodgers injury derailed him. And instead of just cutting my losses, I said, hey, I spent on this guy. I want to return. And that was the biggest thing that hurt me in that league was chasing the fact that I lost my 1st round draft pick and my wide receiver 1. Even though I had like Puka in that league, it just was behind the 8 ball. So again, chasing a guy at a cost like Malik Neighbors, like, to not be able to return, that's probably a hard road to win your league. All right, moving on to the Jets. Let's do what we came here to do. Don't care about what they did last year. Second play of the season, Aaron Rodgers tears his ACL or his Achilles. Don't care. Like we got to project out what they're going to be this year. So we're probably looking at not going to be an elite offense or even necessarily a good offense from a projection standpoint. All we really want is the Jets to be like, okay, top 12, top 16. I'm okay with that. Your return on investment is likely going to happen. So what they go out and do, they bought a new offensive line. John Simpson, 2 years, $18 million, probably going to play right guard. Morgan Moses from the Ravens, he's okay to pretty good. He's going to probably play right tackle. Tyron Smith, offensive tackle from the Cowboys, 1 year, $20 million. He's going to play left tackle. They also drafted Olu Fashanu from Penn State. I would imagine he's going to play like left guard, and he can just jump into a tackle spot if there's an injury. Tyron Smith is getting a little older in age. Like, we can project this offense to be somewhere, or this offensive line to be in the okay to pretty good category this year, unlike last year where they were going to be in the like not good to pretty bad category. So, expecting these guys have a much better chance to return on investment overall. All right. Aaron Rodgers, he is my quarterback 27. He's 40. He's coming off the Achilles. Like, they're very limited, nimbly bimbly to be counting on with him after the Achilles at his age. That's why he's at 27. His ability to win me a league, to have that elite or legendary range of outcomes is probably not there. And they have a pretty good defense, which means that they don't necessarily need Aaron Rodgers to do anything more than be like, okay. He is quarterback 20, 129 on Fantasy Pros over on Underdog. Remember, it's a best ball league. We're just trying to get an idea of where everybody's going. He is quarterback 20, ADP 153. Over here on ESPN, he is going quarterback 81, quarterback 12, 81 overall. So we got to talk about like huge discrepancies with ADPs and why ESPN would maybe have Aaron Rodgers at quarterback 12. Do I agree or disagree? Yeah, I could definitely see Aaron Rodgers finishing as like a top 5 quarterback this year. He's not going to have that legendary to elite range of outcomes. That's one of the first things I would talk about why I have him at 27 overall. Would I be okay with Aaron Rodgers starting the season as my quarterback? Well, especially if I'm stacking with Garrett Wilson, absolutely. Now we can get into it a little bit more when we talk about ranges of outcome. I'm going to say at his age, coming off the Achilles, you're probably looking at like very little rushing. So like Jared Goff down here, 21 rushing yards, Tua 74. Like maybe Aaron Rodgers, just because of his play style, it's going to be closer to like 100 yards. And then we can also talk about him calling his number a couple times. That's what he's always done. Maybe 2 rushing touchdowns. That's what you're looking at for like that over underline for his rushing ability. Now we talk about from the passing standpoint, I'm going to say it's probably closer to like 4,000 yards, 30 touchdowns. You're looking at the possibility of a Brock Purdy season from a guy going at like somewhere between like quarterback 20 and quarterback 12. That's pretty good when you think about it overall. I pulled the scoring up for him. You're probably looking at 18 points a game. That's pretty good. Return on investment. Not going to win you a league. Definitely not going to lose you a league. If you're just punting that position further and further down the line, that's what I would like him. I'm going to guess though, your expectations on Aaron Rodgers may be closer to like this 2020 season with Green Bay, 3,600 yards, 26 touchdowns. Why? That defense doesn't need Aaron Rodgers to do anything more than what he did that season. If they're not playing fast and they're not playing super aggressive, he's just not going to score a lot or he's not going to throw a lot of touchdowns. That's the long and short of it. That's why I would have him down at 27. You really need that rushing upside to potentially have that like league winner or elite season. And he may not even have a high enough passing volume to compete with some of the other guys. What I will talk about is, if you're really interested in this, is I would not be spending quarterback 5 prices or 6 prices on CJ Stroud, that 4,600 yard passing season with 30 or 40 touchdowns. Yeah, you might get the same range of outcomes with Aaron Rodgers. That's something I would be looking at. There's a very close similarity. CJ Stroud is not a rusher. He did a little bit more of that last year. He didn't do it in college. That's what we're expecting with Aaron Rodgers. You're looking at the potentially the same ceiling with Aaron Rodgers as CJ Stroud, but it's going to cost me like relatively nothing to find out with Aaron Rodgers. That's how I would view these two players combined. And again, if you're thinking about like your Tuas or your Jared Goffs, yeah, I would just pull the trigger on your Aaron Rodgers at this point. So this is more about stacking. Hey, Garrett Wilson, the Sun God, Laporta, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, like that's where I would specifically be targeting these guys. Like Aaron Rodgers, again, if I'm playing like quarterback chicken in a league where there's going to be like 2 quarterbacks drafted in 1 quarterback leagues, like, yeah, he would be on the list as potentially being able to return on that like solid level quarterback 1 range of outcome with him. So when it comes to your peace of mind, Tyrod Taylor, 2 years, $12 million, $8.5 million guaranteed. I would be a little bit more interested in Jordan Travis, but at this point, from what we saw last year, Aaron Rodgers goes down, you'll flush the season away. Jordan Travis may be the guy that they would turn to at this point. He's the 5th round draft pick from Florida State with a little bit of nimbly-bimbly on this one. All right, moving on, running back room. Breece Hall, he is my running back 1. This becomes an issue of CMC's age, the competition that may exist in San Francisco, and them theoretically trying to take some of the touches from CMC. That's why I moved Breece Hall up. The main thing we're looking at is red zone opportunities and design passing work. Breece Hall led all running backs last year in targets, 95. And that's with being ramped up in usage coming off the ACL. He's not going to have that this year. So again, we can project out theoretically, that he could have an increase in rushing efficiency and rushing touchdowns to go along with even theoretically an increase in receiving work and receiving efficiency. When we talk about going after certain running backs in the draft, if they don't have that legendary range of outcomes, and there's probably only 4 of them in this year's draft, they're probably not worth reaching on. So that's when we start talking about punting the running back position. If I can't get Breece, I can't get Bijan, and I can't get CMC, like I don't care. I'll go someplace else. In this case, there's one other running back. That's why I have Rachaad White so high. That is that design passing work. That's why Breece should be so high. That's your floor. Everything else is gravy after that. One of the things that would bother me with Breece is 4th round draft pick Braylon Allen. If we start hearing that he's going to have like a role in the offense, not just be the handcuff, he's probably going to be the priority handcuff because of the draft capital. There's a possibility that he will eat in the Breece Hall. That's why I might end up moving Breece Hall either out of the tier or just down from that running back 1 selection overall. So to get an idea of where Breece is going, he is running back 2 on Fantasy Pros, 6. I think that's low because he does have a legendary season within his range of outcomes. On ESPN, he's going 2 overall, running back 2. Again, we're splitting hair between him, Bijan, and CMC. And on Underdog Best Ball League, he is going running back 3, ADP 7. I think that's low. The only other guy that I would theoretically move into the tier of having an elite upside is Garrett Wilson. Otherwise, those would be my top 5 guys that potentially could have that ridiculous type legendary season. Breece is one of those guys. All right. So waiting on Braylon Allen's role in the offense, if he's going to be the handcuff or if he's going to be like an actual design guy that's going to take away opportunity from Breece. The other couple guys to talk about, I think last year's 5th round draft pick, Israel Abanikanda is going to get cut. Last year, they gave him this run between week 14 and week 18. His snap share went down. That means they probably saw enough. They also brought in a 5th round draft pick, Isaiah Davis from South Dakota State. I kind of like him, but the FCS guys are difficult to translate because of the lower level opportunity. That would bother me too. They could end up definitely getting closer to a running back by committee between Hall, Allen, and Davis. And that means those high value touches are going to go through Breece. That's going to limit his high end range of outcomes, his ceiling when it comes to just overall opportunity. And you kind of need some of that gravy to push him into the legendary range of outcomes. If he's only going to be an elite player, he's probably not worth reaching on at that point from a running back position. All right. Wide receiver room, you're looking at Garrett Wilson. He is my wide receiver 2. Overall on Fantasy Pros, he's 12, wide receiver 8. On Underdog, he's going at wide receiver 8 overall with an ADP 11. And then on ESPN, you're looking at him going wide receiver 14 or wide receiver 8, wide receiver 14. This is about where he should be going. The one thing, the caveat to this is, again, if we're looking for guys that have the story to tell about having that legendary outcome, it would be Garrett Wilson. There are guys that I would be reaching on him over because I know guys like Tyreek Hill have that age apex. Chase has competition for opportunity. The Sun God's got competition for opportunity. There's stuff going on with Justin Jefferson, competition, quarterback room. Jonathan Taylor's probably imperfect this year. Like some of these guys, that's why I would push Garrett Wilson up a lot higher. So if you have like the 105, I would definitely be looking at Garrett Wilson over some of these other guys because of that story overall. This would be one of those guys, and I could bring this up. Like last year with Garrett Wilson, very bad offense. Okay offenses with lack of competition for opportunity. That's what we generally look for. So last year with Garrett Wilson, 168 targets. I could definitely see that staying in line again this year because of the other wide receivers and other tight ends on this team. So if we do 168 with Garrett Wilson, something along those lines, we could be pushing him up towards this like legendary type of season with the in overall increase in efficiency. So again, 1,500 to 1,800 yards, double digit touchdowns. That's probably like the ceiling of his ranges of outcomes. That's why I would push him as hard as he is. So now you're looking at like 20 to 23 points, 24 points a game. That wins you a league, and that's why he should be up as high, because the closest thing to competition for opportunity right now is going to be Mike Williams coming over from the Chargers, coming off the ACL. I'm going to guess right now he's going to be on the pup. He's undraftable in my mind until we know what's going on with his health. If you start the season on the pup, then we're going to expect him to get ramped back up. His overall value would probably be closer to the playoffs, the fantasy playoffs overall. He's going wide receiver 51, 122 on Fantasy Pros. Over on Underdog, he's going wide receiver 52, 106. And on ESPN, he is 94 overall, wide receiver 43. There are guys that I know have a better range of outcomes to win me a league than Mike Williams. You're looking at a boom bust wide receiver 2 at best, 15 points a game, when there are guys like Ladd McConkey, Brian Thomas Jr. that theoretically could jump into that elite category of opportunity with better situations. And that's why I would stay away from guys like this. If he's healthy, and we hear he's healthy going in the season, wide receiver 40 type range would be where I would put him at. But I would still pivot towards other people based off of value where he's going at. Malachi Corley, he's down here 211, wide receiver 81 on ESPN. He's their third round draft pick. On Underdog, he is going as wide receiver 74, ADP 165.2. I have him as undraftable right now in the wide receiver 70 range, where I just dump guys. Wide receiver 80, 199 on Fantasy Pros. Probably more of a gadget number 3. He's going to have more value if Mike Williams starts the year on the pup. Theoretically could be the number 2 wide receiver in the offense. I'm going to be probably leaning towards Allen Lazard, another guy that I don't think has any fantasy value other than taking away opportunities. So maybe Mike Williams is going to theoretically eat into Garrett Wilson's second half of the season. That might bother me a little bit more. Mike Williams starts the season healthy. Maybe I would think about moving Garrett Wilson down closer to that wide receiver 8. Right now, I would definitely see that Garrett Wilson could theoretically be that target hog attached to Aaron Rodgers. I do like all of that. Finally, we'll get to the tight end room. You're looking at Tyler Conklin. He is my my tight end 29. No, thank you. I don't know how he wins you a league. He is wide receiver 24 on Fantasy Pros, 196. So he's probably going outside draftability. ESPN we'll get to last. On Underdog, he's going 178 with tight end 22. ESPN has him inexplicably at tight end 18, 185. Like, if you're getting to tight end 18, we could tell the story about how guys win leagues at that point. Like we could tell the story about how Jawan Johnson is the number 2 in New Orleans. Some of these other guys like Chig being like maybe the number 3 attached to a high volume passing offense in Tennessee. Those type of guys. Like, I don't know how you would rank Tyler Conklin up that high. I would imagine if I were to put an over-under line, it's going to be like 600 yards receiving, like 2 or 3 touchdowns, 87 targets. And I bring this up because if there's a guy that I would be interested in with the Jets overall, it's going to be Zack Kuntz. He was a 6th round draft pick last year. He got cut, re-signed to the practice squad. He did appear in week 18 for the Jets. With Mike Evans theoretically not being healthy to start the year, there is an opportunity for a number 2 in this offense, if not a number 3, because you're looking at Malachi Corley or Allen Lazard. Yeah, we already know who the number 2 is going to be in this offense is Breece Hall, but because tight end cost me so little to find out on, Zack Kuntz is a guy that I should be paying attention to in my leagues, especially all he's got to do is jump Tyler Conklin. 3rd-year breakout. This is a guy that should be stashed in dynasty leagues, in redraft leagues. Ear to the fucking railroad tracks with this guy. So you're looking at 6'7", 255. He transferred from Penn State to Old Dominion, and then he blew up there before getting injured. 4.55 guy, good athletic measurables. Like this is what we're looking at from a breakout. And this would be the guy that I would be very surprised. Like, we don't hear something about in camp coming into this year. Like, he did make the active roster with the opportunity to jump all the way up to being the number 2 in this offense. So it's something to be paying attention to. So that's about all I got today when it comes to the Jets. And hopefully I will be back tomorrow.